At first glance, this sounds like a routine policy discussion about broadband maps and broadcast rules. But listen more closely, because beneath the technical language is a much bigger struggle over who controls information, who gets left out of the digital economy, and who decides what local really means in a national media age. This isn't just about maps or TV stations. It's about power, incentives, and what quietly shapes public life long before voters ever notice. What makes this exchange easy to underestimate is its calm tone. There's no shouting, no viral confrontation, no obvious partisan clash, and that's precisely why it matters.
The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Indiana, Ms. Houchin, for 5 minutes to ask her question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the ranking member for holding today's hearing and for the witnesses for being here. The Federal Communications Commission plays an integral role in closing the digital divide, promoting competition, and ensuring Americans can access reliable communication services that are essential for work, education, healthcare, and public safety. I'm especially glad to welcome Chairman Carr and Commissioners Trusty and Gomez from the FCC here today. I also want to just commend the Trump administration for finding $21 billion in savings under the BEAD program, which I know was under Secretary Lutnick, but I do hope that that $21 billion in savings on the BEAD program will be put toward deployment in a technology-neutral way, and that it might go even to updating our national broadband map, which is what I want to focus some of my comments on today. One of the most, I think, underappreciated tools the FCC manages is the broadband map. We relied on it when I was a state legislator as we were trying to roll out a broadband grant program that would avoid overbuilding in areas that already had access. It's a map that is increasingly relied upon, not just by the FCC, but by other federal agencies, state broadband offices, and communities across the country. It really shapes where taxpayer dollars go, how programs are designed, and again, preventing overbuilding and making sure that we're actually reaching unserved Americans. But the map is inaccurate, and if it's inaccurate, then everything down from it is at risk. In April of 2025, the GAO warned that federal agencies are directing tens of billions of dollars in broadband funding based on the map, despite concerns about the accuracy of the data. The report issued 6 recommendations for the FCC related to broadband mapping and improving interagency coordination.
The Congresswoman frames her questions around efficiency, accuracy, and stewardship of taxpayer dollars, concepts almost no one publicly opposes, but those words are doing strategic work. By centering the broadband map as an underappreciated tool, she reframes infrastructure not as concrete and cables, but as data. And in modern governance, data determines reality. If the map is wrong, money flows to the wrong places. If money flows to the wrong places, inequality doesn't just persist, it becomes institutionalized. What's easily missed is that whoever controls the map indirectly controls which communities count as served and which remain invisible. Notice also how responsibility is subtly dispersed. The FCC is working on it. Coordination agreements exist. Progress is happening, but slowly. No one is explicitly blamed, yet tens of billions of dollars continue moving based on information that even the GAO has warned may be flawed. This is governance by process rather than outcome. As long as procedures exist, urgency fades. Then the conversation pivots, and this is where the deeper power dynamics surface. The discussion shifts from broadband access to broadcast ownership caps. On paper, this is about competition and modernization. In practice, it's about who gets to own local voices in a media environment increasingly dominated by national players. The key tension isn't conservative versus liberal. It's centralized content versus local control. When the FCC chair points out that local stations now largely air content produced in New York and Hollywood, he's acknowledging something rarely stated outright. Local licenses no longer guarantee local perspectives. The infrastructure of localism remains, but the substance has thinned out. Here's the quiet paradox. Ownership caps were designed to prevent excessive consolidation. Yet the current system has still produced consolidation, just at the content level instead of the ownership level. Large corporations don't need to own every station if they supply nearly everything those stations broadcast. The unspoken question is this: does protecting legacy rules preserve local democracy, or does it freeze a system that no longer delivers what it promises? Another subtle moment comes when the possibility is raised that major networks could exit broadcasting altogether, but be legally blocked from selling to certain buyers. That reframes regulation not as protection, but as constraint. Suddenly, the rules meant to serve the public interest may also be shaping which voices are allowed to scale and which are not.
Chairman Carr, where does the FCC stand today on implementing GAO's recommendations, particularly validating true access to broadband and strengthening the map?
Well, thank you, Congressman, for your leadership, including on these critical rural broadband issues. The FCC is working on all the recommendations there, and one thing that we have is we have a coordination agreement with NTIA and others to make sure that we're getting all of the data put in the map. For instance, as you've indicated, there's dozens and dozens of different broadband funding programs out there, and we can make sure they all funnel their information through a single map that'll really help improve. The map itself is starting to stabilize. We're seeing the fabric start to stabilize. We're seeing more accuracy out of it. So I think we're heading in the right direction, but more work to do.
Thank you. You know, many of my colleagues and I were working on both sides of the aisle on legislation that does rely on the accuracy of the map. That includes my Data Bridge Act, which directs the FCC to incorporate USDA cultivated land data into the national broadband map. And this is important because in rural and agricultural areas, we want to make sure that's mapped accurately so that funding reaches an entire farm or field, not just a farmhouse address, and supporting connectivity in modern agriculture like precision ag. In the time I have remaining, I do want to pivot to the broadcast policy, Chairman Carr, specifically the broadcast ownership cap. It's clear the landscape for media has changed over the last several decades, and many young Americans never experienced broadcast television, moving the rabbit ears on the television so you can get your 5 stations that you could watch. And many Americans really don't know the difference between Fox News Channel and Fox 59.
What's striking is what never gets said explicitly. No one defines public interest. It's invoked repeatedly, but never pinned down. Localism, competition, diversity, these are treated as self-evident goods, even as the structure producing them erodes. In the end, this exchange reveals how modern power operates less through dramatic decisions and more through quiet technical frameworks. Maps, caps, data standards, and coordination agreements don't make headlines, but they decide outcomes. And the most important question left hanging isn't about broadband speeds or station ownership. It's this: when systems become too complex for the public to follow, who is accountability really for, and who quietly benefits from that complexity? If you found this analysis helpful, you're welcome to subscribe. New videos here focus on understanding American politics beyond the noise. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.